In the early morning hours of February 1st, 2020, at the Cook County Jail in Chicago, Illinois, 24-year-old inmate Christian Gonzalez would calmly walk out of his cell, stating to corrections staff that his new cellmate, 19-year-old Pedro Ruiz, was having issues breathing and was becoming unresponsive. What the corrections staff did know is that the two cellmates were rival gang members. Christian Gonzalez was a member of the Satan Disciples, a Southside Chicago-based gang largely made up of white American and Hispanic American members. 19-year-old Pedro Ruiz was a member of the Almighty Saints. The information that slowly came out showed that the ongoing issues in the Cook County Jail proved to be fatal for a number of inmates, and one big question was asked: why would staff put rival gang members in a single cell together?
Now, a CBS 2 exclusive. 2 days after a teenager was beaten to death inside the Cook County Jail, we're investigating another disturbing attack that seriously injured a different inmate.
CBS 2's Suzanne Lemonnier is digging into what's going on behind bars.
On Saturday, inmate Pedro Ruiz was found beaten in his cell at Cook County Jail. He was taken to a hospital and pronounced dead. Sources with knowledge of the investigation say Ruiz's death is one of several incidents of violence inside the jail in recent months. This is surveillance video from a jail exposing the violent beatings taking place on Cook County Jail buses for several months now. Back to that video inside the day room. It shows similar violence inside the jail. Nearly 7 minutes after the beating ended, Cook County Sheriff's staff enters the day room. Inmates are cuffed, so is the victim. He's taken to a hospital and treated for puncture wounds to his head, neck, and back. The police report says the officer that had been assigned to this area was securing inmates in another part of that section of the jail when the attack happened.
Now, we have been told staffing shortages did not play a role in why it took 7 minutes for staff to respond in the November incident. As for Ruiz's death, I'm told it is under internal investigation. Live in the newsroom, Suzanne Lemonnier, CBS.
Man heads to bond court accused of murdering his cellmate, a rival gang member, all of it inside the Cook County Jail. 24-year-old Christian Gonzalez is facing first-degree murder charges. He's been in custody since June on several other charges, including attempted murder. Sources tell CBS 2 early Saturday morning, Gonzalez told an officer something was wrong with his cellmate, Pedro Ruiz. When backup officers arrived a short time later, they found Ruiz on the floor of the cell, covered in blood. While officers tried to save Ruiz, Gonzalez was handcuffed. Ruiz's death has been ruled a homicide. Sources say Gonzalez had multiple disciplinary incidences and among 5 inmates seen in the surveillance video attacking another inmate in the jail's day room last November. Authorities are still investigating.
The cellmate of an inmate found beaten to death was recently involved in a violent fight at the Cook County Jail. CBS 2's Suzanne Lemonnier is always investigating and asking if the two men should have even been in the same cell.
Cook County Jail inmate Pedro Ruiz was found beaten inside his cell Saturday. He was pronounced dead at a hospital. Sources with knowledge of the incident now tell us Ruiz's cellmate was among the 5 inmates you see in this surveillance video. They're attacking another inmate in the jail day room last November. The inmate is kicked and punched repeatedly. After the attack, a joker from a deck of playing cards is thrown on top of the injured inmate. Our sources tell us this is significant, pointing to ongoing feuds taking place inside the jail between different gangs. Arrest reports we found in court documents show the beating victim, Ruiz, and his cellmate are all members of different street gangs. Illinois County Jail standards state gang activity must be considered when an inmate is assigned to their cell. So why was Ruiz assigned to a cell with an inmate from another gang, especially after this recent attack in the jail day room?
Well, we asked the jail why they put 2 rival gang members in the same cell. They told us there hasn't been a homicide in the jail in more than 5 years, and they're conducting a thorough review of the incident. The state's attorney's office told us there have been no charges in Ruiz's death yet. Police are still investigating. Live in the newsroom, Suzanne Lemonnier, CBS 2 News. Brad, Erica.
Now to a CBS 2 exclusive. We are told charges are expected soon in the weekend beating death of a Cook County jail inmate, Pedro Ruiz. It's a story we've been following, and CBS 2's Suzanne Lamignot has learned Ruiz had only been in jail for 72 hours before he died.
Sources with knowledge of the incident say an officer was doing a security check on the area where Pedro Ruiz and Christian Gonzalez were cellmates on the morning of February 1st. When the officer got near their cell, Gonzalez said to the officer, "Something is wrong with my cellmate." The officer saw Ruiz standing. His back was against a wall. He didn't appear to have visible injuries. The officer called a sergeant, telling the sergeant what Gonzalez said. 2 sergeants and a lieutenant arrived at the cell. They unsecured the cell door. That's when they saw Ruiz on the floor near the door, covered in blood. Gonzalez, who our sources say is known to have multiple disciplinary incidents, was put in handcuffs. An officer started chest compressions on Ruiz. 911 was called. An officer got a defibrillator. It was used on Ruiz while several officers continued chest compressions. When paramedics arrived, they took over the chest compressions. Ruiz was then put on a gurney and taken to Mount Sinai Hospital, where he was pronounced dead. The medical examiner ruled Ruiz's death a homicide. Our sources also tell us Gonzalez is among the 5 inmates you see in this surveillance video. They're attacking another inmate in the jail day room last November. The inmate is kicked and punched repeatedly. After the attack, a joker from a deck of playing cards is thrown on top of the injured inmate. Our sources tell us this is significant. It shows the continuing conflicts taking place inside the jail between different gangs. Court documents show the beating victim from the November incident, Ruiz and Gonzalez, are all members of 3 different gangs. Illinois County jail standards state gang activity must be considered when an inmate is assigned to their cell.
And we asked why Ruiz and Gonzalez were assigned to the same cell if they were members of different gangs. The sheriff's office told us homicides in the jail are rare. The last one took place more than 5 years ago. The office has launched a thorough internal review of all the factors involved in this case. To see a detailed timeline of this incident, search inmate death on our website, CBS Chicago. Live in the newsroom, Suzanne Lamignot, CBS 2 News. Brad.
All right, staying in front of this one, Suzanne, thank you.
What's going on, you guys? Welcome back. Another episode of Greenlit Gang TV. Appreciate you guys checking out the channel. Today, we're going to be going to Chi-Town with it, Chicago, Illinois. I got a lot of crap in my last couple videos. I was pronouncing Illinois. I'm saying it with an S. Comments were going at me hard for good reason. Kind of funny. So anyway, I think I'm pronouncing it right now. But anyway, February 1st, 2020. Inmate 24-year-old Christian Gonzalez, a Satan Disciples gang member, a gang that's been around since 1959, basically made up of white American and Hispanic American members. Started on the Southside of Chicago. They are known for their rivalry with the Latin Kings and Vice Lords. They're part of the Folk Nation. Some of their known allies are the Gangster Disciples, Imperial Gangsters, Maniac Latin Disciples, and Simon City Royals. And their rivals are the Black P. Stones, Chicago Gaylords, the Latin Kings, and the Vice Lords. Pedro Ruiz, Christian Gonzalez's cellmate, 19-year-old Pedro Ruiz, was a member of the Almighty Saints. The Almighty Saints is a street gang, kind of founded around the same time, founded in the early 60s by, it's really interesting, by Polish youth at Davis Square Park in the back of the Yards neighborhood in Chicago, but was later, and this is important, largely made up of Hispanics due to the change in the community's ethnic makeup. You see that happen a lot. If you want an example of that, maybe somewhere like a Compton, California. Not saying that there were white gangs, but Compton in the 50s, 60s, maybe early 70s was largely white folk and white people. They slowly moved out of the neighborhood. The ethnicities changed to African American, Crips, Bloods. These very, very well-known gangs got a strong foothold, and you have what you have today with that. So anyway, very important to remember. The Satan Disciples, the Almighty Saints, very, very strong rivals, okay? And like I said in my intro, you've got Christian Gonzalez, 24 years old, Pedro Ruiz, 19 years old. They are part of a rival gang. And Christian Gonzalez was no joke. He was basically arrested on attempted murder charges back There was an incident in 2017 in which police alleged that he used an assault-style rifle to shoot and wound a man. He gets booked into the county jail, the Cook County Jail, on June 2nd, 2019. And then a month later, he is indicted on 6 counts of attempted murder. So, fast forward not very long at all, just a few months. On November 19th, 2019, Christian Gonzalez participates in an attack on an inmate inside the jail. There's surveillance video inside the jail. It's pretty hard to watch. So inside the jail shows Gonzalez was one of 5 inmates who attacked another inmate inside of a county jail day room, an area where inmates, basically you're just hanging out, you're watching TV, there's people on the phones, there's people playing cards, there's people eating. Everyone's just kind of doing their thing, trying to pass time. And it's an area, it's kind of like, you can tell with the way this Cook County Jail is, it's like a dorm setting. So they have their cells that they go to. It's probably 2 people in a cell. But once those doors pop, then they're going to be out for, probably most of the day. So Gonzalez is seen repeatedly kicking the man who was hospitalized with puncture wounds from a makeshift knife used in the attack while he was on the ground. And basically it said that Gonzalez and 4 other inmates accused in the attack were charged with the attempted murder. It said Gonzalez was punching and kicking him, and then the other inmates ran up and were stabbing him. So we fast forward to just another couple months. January 29th, at the beginning of 2020, 19-year-old Pedro Ruiz, he is arrested on an attempted murder charge in Chicago's Back of the Yards neighborhood after police officers on patrol said he matched the description of a suspect in a recent shooting, which left a man with multiple gunshot wounds. He is placed in a cell with Christian Gonzalez shortly after being booked into the Cook County Jail. It said Pedro Ruiz hadn't even been in the Cook County Jail 72 hours total upon his death. And then you got a timeline here. So February 1st, 2020 at 12:24, a Cook County Jail correctional officer begins a 30-minute security check. 12:27 a.m., jail staff report Ruiz is secured in his cell. 12:54 to about 1:28 a.m., jail correctional officers conduct 2 more security checks. During one of those checks, Gonzalez says to one of the officers, quote, "Something is wrong with my cellmate, Ruiz." Goes on to say, the officer initially reports seeing Gonzalez propped up against a wall with no visible injuries. At 1:53 a.m., so about a half hour later, 3 higher-ranking jail officers arrive on the scene and see Gonzalez laying on the floor of the cell near the door, covered in blood. A minute later, Gonzalez exits the cell willingly and is handcuffed without resistance. Again, a minute later, 1:55 a.m., one of the higher-ranking officers calls over the radio to activate 911. Paramedics from the jail's hospitals are called, and within the next 5 or 10 minutes, a jail officer notifies the jail superintendent. An ambulance from the Chicago Fire Department arrives. Paramedics arrives. And by 2:56 a.m., so with a matter of a couple hours, Ruiz is pronounced dead. And this just shines light. So the Cook County Jail in Chicago has had issues forever, especially over the last 10 years. It seems like there's always a 60-minute story or a CBS News story about the jail. There's a picture I put up of the overcrowding. It almost looks like a South American jail cell where you've just got people packed in there like sardines. They talk about the violence, the corruption, and that happens in a lot of jails, okay? Cook County Jail isn't, alone in that, but the gang violence in Chicago is so well known. You have so many different gangs, so many different sets. And this case just shone a light on that because it said that the jail staff knowingly put these 2 together. They knew they were rivals. And you're not just putting them in like a day room setting together. You're putting them in a 2-man cell. Like I said, Ruiz didn't even last 72 hours. It said that he was only with Gonzalez like an hour and a half total. So the minute he got put in there, he's 5 years younger than Gonzalez. Gonzalez has probably some bodies on his record. He's got attempts on his record. It's showing him stomping out a guy a few months earlier. I mean, in a way, Ruiz didn't really have a chance. And I'm not saying Ruiz was some angel. He's in there on an attempted murder charge. He shot at somebody multiple times. But, man, it's just like you're feeding these guys to the wolves, and it's not right. And you're not gonna tell me that jail staff didn't know exactly what they were doing. There's multiple interviews. You can watch multiple podcasts, multiple interviews done with fellow inmates. They know exactly what they're doing. I just watched a Vlad interview with a former corrections officer in the California Department of Corrections. He was at very, very well-known state prisons, max security prisons, and he says it's a game to the guards. And I guarantee you the same thing is going on at Cook County Jail. It's sad. It's horrible. It's violent. It's like a gladiator school. And these guys are young. And no matter what you think about them or that they deserve it or don't deserve it, everybody is due their day in court. I've said this in other videos. Everybody is due their day in court. And for Ruiz, it was no different. For Pedro Ruiz, he deserved to have a day in court. And yeah, and don't get me wrong. With so many gang members, with so many things going on, I am not going to say that jail staff's job is easy. It's hard. It's extremely hard. I get it. You can't be perfect. Mistakes get made, but this was no mistake. And actually, Ruiz's family would go on to sue the Cook County Jail, saying that the jail staff knowingly put their family member in a dangerous position to have this happen to him. Especially with someone like Christian Gonzalez. He was a known high violent, dangerous inmate, had many instances of violence against other inmates. You know, he's in there on serious charges. He's got a rep. Again, it's just, it's like a powder keg. You know something's going to happen. So anyway, there you guys have it. Really appreciate you guys checking out the video. Until next time, peace.